Tell me your dreams over bacon and eggs. We'll share a laugh and a story and even a wish on the breakfast dish. Bop, 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 bop.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of The Breakfast Dish. The Breakfast Dish. I realized when we listened back to episode 0, I didn't get the T quite right, so it's Breakfast Dish. The Breakfast Dish was, of course, inspired by the cultural phenomenon that was the Breakfast series, created by Karen Johnson Diamond. Karen, say hi.
Hi, I'm Karen Johnson Diamond.
And it has been barely facilitated by me, Griffin Cork. I put 2 mics in front of us, and we're doing our damnedest. I'm Griffin. She's Karen.
I'm Karen. He's Griffin. He's my son.
That's right. And today, we are joined by Ryan Hinds. Hi, Ryan.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me on. It's so wonderful to be had for the first time.
I know. Well, we're happy to have you. We're happy that you placated us, but we've kind of figured stuff out, and both me and my mother are sitting in separate closets right now, trying to figure out the best audio. So
I have to say, your family really impresses me because all of your last names are things. Griffin Cork. Cork is a thing. Karen Johnson Diamond.
Mm-hmm. And is it? I'm a thing. I am such a thing.
I don't know if that's...
Legally, I am Karen Cork. That is my actual married name. But I got married after I had already changed my name for equity to Karen Johnson Diamond. So I never introduced... Kevin says I never introduce myself as Karen Cork unless I want to buy something on his credit card. Then I use the name Cork.
I'm happy to be Ryan Cork, if that's the rule.
Nice!
For this half an hour, you're Ryan Cork. Who was your friend, Mom, who had the tiger laser blood or something for equity?
Oh, Ryan, you might know there was a Toronto actor that, I don't know, same as me, there was already a Karen Johnson in equity, so I had to change my name when I joined years ago. There's somebody in Toronto whose name was, I don't know, Bill Smith, and he tried a gazillion different options, and equity kept saying, no, you can't do that, you can't know that. So he eventually, for equity, changed his name to Champion Panther. He's worked in Calgary. I've seen his 8x10 up on the Theatre Calgary call board, and it says under his name, Champion Panther. Does it sound familiar? Like, do you know this person at all?
I can't say that I've crossed paths with Champion Panther before. I'm pretty positive about that because I feel like I would remember the name Champion Panther. But I would love to.
Me too.
And it's another last name that's a thing.
Exactly.
I want to do this, Griffin. If there was another Griffin Cork in equity, when you join equity, what would you want your name to be?
What was the example that I just brought up trying to figure it out? Tiger laser blood? That's good. I think mine is Tiger laser blood.
Ryan, if you had to change your name, what would it be?
If I had to change my name, it would be a really simple change, guys. It would just be Ryan to Brian. Because people always think my name is Brian when they first meet me for the first time. I have this conversation all the time where I say, hi, my name is Ryan. And people are like, oh, Brian, nice to meet you. And I'll say, no, Ryan with an R. And they say, Brian.
No, I got it, Brian.
My name would be Brian Hinds.
Well, Brian Hinds. Brian, thank you for joining us all the way from Toronto.
Anyway, Brian, as you might have heard, Tiger and... Oh, wait, Karen, what's yours?
Oh, I already did it to Karen Johnson Diamond. I'll go with Ice Cherry because that's what Neil Diamond was going to change his name to. So if I had to change it again, I would be Ice Cherry.
Like the... What? Like, you're going to change his artist name to Ice Cherry?
His real name's Neil Diamond, but his managers at the beginning said, that sounds too made up, change it. So he went back and forth between, do I change it to Ice Cherry or do I change it to Noah Kaminsky?
Very different things.
Eventually he said, I'm not going to change it, I'm sticking with Neil Diamond. But I'll take the Ice Cherry if equity gets unhappy with me for some reason as Karen Johnson Diamond.
I'd like a couple of ice cherries, maybe a chocolate loaf, and some vanilla wafers.
Yeah. Ice cherries are the common drink, and then Noah Kaminsky's on the secret menu. It's like an Arnold Palmer, but a lot worse.
So now here we are, Ice and Brian.
Ice and Tiger and Brian.
Tiger.
Well, we made a promise in episode 0 that you would talk about Neil Diamond in every episode, and that's checked off for this episode.
Are you related?
Not related, but that is why my last name's Diamond, because I've loved him since I was a teenager. And when I had to change my name for equity, I tried 6 different options and they went, nope, nope, nope. And finally I went, okay, I'm just adding Diamond. And they went, okay.
What's your favorite Neil Diamond song?
Glory Road or I've Been This Way Before. How about you?
It is probably Crunchy Granola Sweet.
This is a true person who really knows Neil Diamond.
I wish the people listening right now could see your empathetic hands.
Everybody else would go, Sweet Caroline, because that's the only Neil Diamond song they could think of. Crunchy Granola Sweet. I just love you for knowing that. See, this is why we had to get to know Ryan.
It's wonderful.
It is, and it's so upbeat.
Yeah.
So, Ryan, as you may know, by the way, mine's Solitary Man. No one asked. But as you may know, The Breakfast Dish is a podcast that Kara and I have started to talk about folks who are making art online or that can be viewed with respects to like the current health restrictions and all that. And you are directing a show at the Toronto Fringe this year, 2020, called Sarah Frank.
Yeah.
And is the whole Fringe online, or is there like a collection of pieces that are just online?
The whole Fringe is online. Some pieces are video,
Right.
Some pieces are audio. Sarah Frank is an audio experience, and I think it's everything was being canceled. Everything was being shut down, or canceled, or postponed, or delayed. And so when I found out that Fringe was actually going ahead in an altered form, it was such a relief. A, because finally there's something to do, both as a participant and as an observer. But B, because Fringe is a special experience. It's very unique. It is a very there's a Fringe spirit that's alive and well. I really love that the Fringe isn't kind of bowing to the pandemic. The Fringe is going to continue. It's going to be in an altered form. It's going to be in a way that we may not recognize. It may be a different way of getting tickets and enjoying the art, but it's still about enjoying the art. It's still about creating the art and giving the artists a chance to explore something new. And in this case, for a lot of us, we're exploring a whole new format.
Yeah, that's... I mean, I think audio plays are so fascinating. I can't remember who I was talking to, but like in March when this all kind of started getting serious and locking down, I was talking to somebody about there's some companies in Calgary and I'm sure elsewhere that do like live radio plays on stage, so they kind of watch you make all the Foley sound. And yeah, I think radio plays and really audio stories in general, audiobooks, narrative podcasts are making like a huge surge right now.
So there's a funny coincidence actually. The last show that I acted in pre-shutdown was It's a Wonderful Life, a radio play.
Oh.
No.
Who did you play?
So I played Clarence. Clarence and Mr. Martini and a few other small ones, but Clarence was my main one. So we toured in New Brunswick, which was cool because I got to go to a whole bunch of places I'd never been before. I got to visit Miramichi for the first time. I got to visit Fredericton for the first time. Whole bunch of other cities, but I had never done a radio play before, so I very much discovered playing the roles wasn't the challenge. I can act the role of Clarence until the cows come home, but when you add in doing the sound effects, making sure you're out of somebody's way who is running to do a sound effect. What do you do when you clink 2 glasses together and they shatter?
Wait a minute, did that happen? Did that happen to you?
It happened to me. Something's got to happen right now to communicate to the audience what's happening. So it just ended up being such a funny coincidence because I got to do a radio play, we shut down, and now I'm directing one.
Wow.
That's brilliant.
I have the kind of experience of being able to sit back as a director and know the process a little bit and know what it's like for the actors and knowing when to tell. Rebecca Perry plays Sarah Frank in the show. Knowing when to tell Rebecca, we're going to need a long pause here. We're going to need a short pause here. as you're talking here, there's probably going to be something under you, so keep that in mind. I felt really, really prepared going into the process.
Sure.
And is there anything? I love the idea that you're kind of starting your audio journey before and during this pandemic. Is there something that you find? The only reason I ask the question is because I think the idea of silence would be so much more engaging in audio, because, you know, if there's silence in a show, you can still kind of watch what's happening. But if there's silence and all you have is audio, that's really gripping. Is there something like that translating to an audio story that you find that you don't really get anywhere else?
Oh, absolutely. I think something that I was thinking about while directing Sarah and Frank was the rhythm of the story. Because I come from musical theater as a musician, when I look at a scene, the rhythm of it is what jumps out at me. When the crescendos are, when things are quiet, and also when things are silent, when there's nothing happening, and the transitions between those, how we get from one to the other. So it was really fun to play with, especially with Sarah and Frank. It covers a lot of years. It's centered kind of before, during, and after the Civil War. So already there's a soundscape to be played with. We have ideas of what are common experiences that people had at the time. What were people doing at the time? What's the experience of war like? So yeah, it was just like, I love, as an artist, I love silence. I love the thing that happens when a scene is so powerful. I love the magic that happens when a scene is so powerful that the actors and the audience hit a beautiful moment of silence and let the idea and the images sink in. So that's something that I definitely thought about with Sarah and Frank. When are there chances for the audience not just to hear the words, but to feel the words, to let the words sink in and take them on a journey.
So that's such a great way of describing it. Now tell me about the playwright.
Stephen Elliott Jackson. Oh my goodness. He had a play at Toronto Fringe a couple of years ago, A Seat Next to the King, which really set Toronto on its ear. It really is true. Everybody was talking about A Seat Next to the King. Everybody saw A Seat Next to the King. I had to buy my friend's ticket and offer them double what the price was, because I really wanted to see it. I really, really wanted to see it, and there were no tickets. I couldn't find any.
I think I learned about Seat Next to the King in school, I think.
Yeah, it's published now. Like it's gone on to have a life, and so right away, on basis of that, I'm like, okay, so this is probably an artist that I'd like to work with. Somebody who is able to kind of put his finger on the pulse and get people talking. Aside from that, Stephen Elliott Jackson is somebody that is in a lot of my social circles, is in my friend circles. We hadn't really met properly up until that time, but I'm close with Cole Alvis, who's an artist from Alberta. Duchess, Alberta?
Oh, there is a place.
There is a Duchess, Alberta, and a Duchess Bakery. Those two totally different things. Either way, Cole is from Alberta.
And Cole and Stephen were friends growing up. And so there is an Alberta connection because Stephen is from there, and
wow,
we got to be friends. So it's nice to feel a social connection with the people you're working with, not just an artistic connection with the people that you're working with.
An Albertan boy goes to Toronto, makes good.
Yeah.
Oh, so great.
And Stephen is just like, as a writer, my goodness, Stephen will just write and write and write and write and write and not have an ego about cutting things or altering things. He's really unafraid to let things go. Both myself as director and the actor in the show, Rebecca Perry, if either of us were like, well, this, I don't know about this line, he'd be like, fine, no problem.
Oh.
So he really impressed me with his ability to be in the craft, to be really working. He's not the kind of writer who says here's my play.
Right.
Absolutely not. Stephen was with us working on it right up until the very, very, very end.
Amazing.
So, and you kind of touched upon it a little bit, but do you want to get into the story of Sarah Frank?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's based on a true story, a real person. Sarah Thompson was a person who lived in the 1800s, who was Canadian, was not entirely happy with their living situation, and then went into the world as a man and became this man, Frank Thompson, and ended up fighting in the Civil War as a man, and waited to as the war went on. They eased the restrictions on who could be a soldier. So when they decided that they were desperate enough for soldiers that they didn't need to do like a physical, that's when Frank Thompson decided, now's the time for me to be a soldier. And so he fought the Civil War. He ended up leaving because he was afraid of being found out. He was afraid of his secret being revealed. So what's interesting to me about the story is it's not just about a historical first. It's about this person who was just trying to find a way to exist that was true to them and true to who they are, and had no use for the gender norms of the time. So entitling the show Sarah Frank, we are acknowledging that's the story. That's what the play is about, for me at least, and I think for a lot of people who will listen. Throughout the play, we detail the ways in which Sarah became Frank. We detail the ways in which Sarah's increasing realization that the life of a woman at that time was not the life that was meant for her, was not the life that felt true to her. We tried hard to really dramatize that. And then again, at the end, when it reverses and she figures out how to leave Frank behind and re-enter into her life as Sarah, it really, for me, indicates how fluid gender is and how fluid our identities are. And that, for me, is the beautiful thing about the play. That's what I really connected with on First Read.
And visually, the title reads Sarah/Frank.
Yeah.
So not necessarily first name, last name. It's these two people exist.
Yeah.
Right. Or this one person exists under these two identities.
Yeah. There was Sarah Thompson and there's Frank Thompson. And playing Sarah Frank is Rebecca Perry, who a lot of people know through her cabaret work and her solo show work. She really has a wonderful, bright, lovely personality. But in this play, she's doing excellent actorly work. She's really dug deep and become alive as this person back then who goes from childhood to her senior years, and listening to Rebecca be so versatile and be so willing to try something new and different that's really a departure from how a lot of people see her work prior has been really, really wonderful.
I really like the term. I like the term actorly work. I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
I love it when artists get to step out of their, not necessarily comfort zone, but the box that other people have maybe put them in and get to.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to hear this. And we hear it. There's only 3 days that it's available.
Mm-hmm.
And it is pre-recorded. Yes, not live.
Yes, it is pre-recorded. It's pre-recorded. There's so much sound design, which is done wonderfully by David Kingsmill. I think it would be really, really complicated to do it live.
Sure.
And I also think like it's a bit of a learning curve as well. I'm not sure that the Fringe has enough aspirin to deal with the headaches that would happen if everybody's shows were live. You know what I mean? It's just such a such a dicey proposition. So
with the scope and the amount of programming that a Fringe runs, you're basically running like a 24-hour television studio at that point. You try to do everything live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read this great article this morning, and it's around on Facebook, but Matt Brock, he's a playwright in Edmonton, Griffin, I think.
Mac Brock.
Wrote this great article about you. Boy, oh boy, you oldsters need those emerging artists right now, because we're the ones that know how to take our art onto the digital world now. We get it. We know how to use the digitals. We know how to use the digitals. We know how to social.
Boy, oh boy.
Boy, oh boy.
Count my tuppence.
And which is what I've been saying since the beginning is I need to just get on the coattails of some people like those who have imagined taking an entire Fringe festival online.
Yeah.
And I just need to get on their coattails. And
yeah. So I turned 40 in September. And
you did not.
I did. And until I turned 40, I very much identified with the kind of like younger half of the actors. And now I'm getting towards my kind of like older time in the industry. And for me, coming into this pandemic, the learning curve of everything that we have to do, in addition to directing Sarah Frank as an audio experience, I've done a full-length singing cabaret for Buddies in Bad Times live on their Instagram. You and I have done this Angels in America reading. One of the shows that got canceled because of the pandemic was Paradise Lost at the National Arts Center. I was part of that cast. So that's a big frustration that we lost that experience. But we, thanks to the amazingness of the National Arts Center and of our director, Sarah Stanley, we had our entire first day of rehearsal on Zoom. We had our design presentations. We had the read-through, and Aaron Shields, the playwright, joined us for it. We had our equity breaks. It truly was a online working experience. And a lot of us kind of see these Zoom situations as we're just getting the lines out and looking at a screen or looking at a lens. And both with Paradise Lost and in our Angels in America, Karen, I feel like we were truly listening to each other. We were actors in the moment, responding to what the other person was giving us and then throwing back something else. The ball was in the air. And so that's been amazing. And that's been a big learning curve, because that's something that I would not have thought would be possible prior to the pandemic.
Well, I once saw a Shakespeare play that I was the only one in the city who loved. It was a production of Romeo and Juliet that was quite static. A lot of people complained that there just wasn't a lot of action. And I thought it was the best production because you had to cling on the words. There wasn't anything to help you. There wasn't anything to distract you. So that's what I felt doing the reading of Angels in America, is that, we do have our faces and we can connect because of Zoom, but you hear everything. Your hearing is what takes over when it's basically an audio experience. So listen to this segue that I'm about to do. This is brilliant.
You go. Yeah. Take it.
So you talked about the National Arts Center show getting canceled, and I was supposed to do a show at ATP called Cowgirl Up, which when it was canceled, the CBC podcast Play Me, that's put out by Expect, I think partly by Expect Theatre, they decided to record it for their podcast. And also Chris Tolley is Chris Tolley, who helps produce that podcast, lent us his instructional videos on how to do this podcast and how to help people set up mics, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, that podcast, I've listened to a couple of plays now, and I'm just blown away. Plays I'd never heard, a couple Robert Chafes. I'm just Karen Hinds. So, which leads me to, why isn't Sarah Frank, if it's a great audio experience like that, that'd be a great pitch for Expect Theatre to put on the podcast Play Me. How was that circle of life I just did?
That was pretty good.
That was a round of applause, I have to say. Excellent segue. Well, Sarah Frank is a new work, so I say, I would love to see it on Play Me. I would love to see it submitted to other festivals that are kind of moving online. And I think Stephen is actively looking at those situations. Stephen also has a producer title on Sarah Frank that I don't have, but I think if I did, I would certainly be encouraging that, and I think I will gently encourage that.
I just put things in the ether. You know what I think? I think that it should travel to London.
What I
Is
heard.
anyone from London listening to this?
Just talking out loud. Here's my segue. Are you ready?
Yes.
Speaking of instructional videos that Chris Tully sent us, bless him, how do we, as a public, but also me and Karen, best experience Sarah Frank? So, like, what websites are we going to? Give us times. Give us dates. Is there a paywall? Give me the whole rundown, Brian.
Okay.
It's Ryan. It's been a while since we made the joke. Ryan Hinds. Oh my God.
So everybody knows the Toronto Fringe website, so go visit that, and all the instructions are there. I could walk you through them right now, but you would end up more confused and downloading I don't know what. So just go to the Toronto Fringe website and follow the instructions very, very clearly. The way that the Fringe is running this year is there's several acts, and the acts run for a few days. Right. So you can listen to all of the shows in a particular act only for those few days.
And you're Act 2, July 4th to 7th, I think. Okay.
Yeah. So we're in Act 2, so definitely check out all of the acts. Definitely listen to a bunch of shows, but when it's the days of Act 2, give Sarah Frank a listen, because that's where we'll be.
And is it
pay what you can?
Donation or pay what you can? Is there like a set ticket price? How does that working?
I believe there's a set ticket price. I don't know off the top of my head, because I've been busy directing the play.
What, you don't know how they're running the Fringe as well?
Yeah. That's not your... You don't have the producer title.
I can't believe you can't.
You're good.
The entire rundown and the whole schedule right now, please.
Actually, what are your audience metrics look like?
Well, Griffin, our wonderful producer here, you'll put these things up on social media links to the...
There will be links on probably any description of any platform that you're listening to this for right now.
I have to ask completely non-related questions now.
Okay.
Number one, what did you have for breakfast?
For breakfast, I had my standard breakfast that I have every day. I had an apple that I sliced up. I had almonds, just a handful of roasted, unsalted almonds. I had a glass of orange juice. And today I had a slice of toast. I always like to have a bread thing. So whether it's a croissant or like a slice of toast or like an English muffin or a bagel. I love a bagel, slice in half, some butter on it. Always a bread thing. But today was a slice of cinnamon raisin toast.
You are a Canadian food guide poster child right now. Almonds, apple. Griffin, what did you have for breakfast?
I had oatmeal crisp. I think it's called maple nut, which I don't know, is something I felt embarrassed to say on a podcast. Oatmeal crisp maple nut? God damn. I have an unrelated thing. We're getting close to our wrap-up time, but I
had a great nut story. Maybe next time.
Well, okay. Well, listen. It can be.
You gotta hear it.
It's the first episode. It can set a precedent. Give me your nut story.
Old showbiz speak. Producers used to call the amount of money that they needed to cover for the week that the show was running the nut. Once the nut was achieved, then everything on top of that was pure profit. So I've definitely had the privilege of being around a bunch of like old producers who are talking together and be like, well, how are you covering your nut this week?
Wow.
Well, this week I really had trouble with my nut. We didn't quite make it. And so every time I hear that word, that's immediately what I go to.
I wish you guys could have seen, you listeners, Ryan leaning into the camera and changing his persona into
putting a big cigar in his mouth.
Yeah. And you can also make it show specific, right? You can totally be like, well, listen, the Phantom of the Opera has a great nut. You know, like it's depending on the context.
Well, I want to ask you about In the Heights nut, because I saw
He's
that
only
you
doing that for
played
me.
Piragua guy at Magnus, I believe it was.
Oh, I played Piragua guy at for a company called We Are Here Productions here in Toronto at Solar Stage, and it was
great.
It was so much fun. Matt Lacaw was our director. We loved Matt Lacaw. Quentin Naughton was our musical director, and he did a great job. And they asked me to audition, and I said, great. And they said, how's your Spanish, Ryan? And I said, it's fabulous. Bald-faced lie.
Fully.
Total invention. So for me, Piragua Guy is such a fun role, and especially for the In the Heights fans. Like, I remember at the closing performance, I walk on stage, and before I've opened my mouth, like, the audience is like applauding and cheering for Piragua Guy. The song is right in the sweet spot of my voice. It's those high belting notes that I'm great at. Yeah. But I am not a native Spanish speaker. I am not a learned Spanish speaker. So it was a rehearsal process full of learning.
I'm a Piragua Spanish speaker, damn it.
I imagine then you were responsible for the nut on In the Heights then. Because
well, listen,
wanted to hear
Piragua Guy is a great nut.
Yeah, it's my favorite musical of all time. Like, it is just my absolute favorite. And I saw it, a wonderful high school in Edmonton, Scona High did it. And I had seen it twice on Broadway, once with Griffin, both with Lin-Manuel Miranda. And I watched this high school production and went, oh, it's just as good. Like, it's something, the writing is so good, the music is so good that, and whoever was playing your character and his excitement and the journey of that character who's like, I'm going to get shut down by Mr. Slushy or whatever it is, who has the refrigerator truck. But then when he wins, because he's the only one with real ice, like, it's just, everyone just cheered when that character came on stage. Why am I talking about this except that
great.
I want to hear Ryan sing now? Like, at some point, I must. Is there videos of you singing that role?
Not of me singing that role. There are some videos of me singing other things online. And when we get around to the Perestroika reading, Belize and Pryor in Angels in America sing a little bit of Hark the Herald Angels Sing. So, Conrad and I are going to give her. I might throw in a little harmony if it doesn't throw him off.
Oh, man, that'll be great. Do you have any more cabaret type things coming up that we can see?
No. Sarah Frank is the last kind of thing I have in my calendar right now. And I think other things will pop up because that's show business and that's what happens. Yep. So hopefully I get to them soon. I miss singing. I have an awesome band that I work with here, and they're just wonderful musicians, and I miss the camaraderie of all of us being in the same room and taking the same breath, and them knowing me so well that they know what I'm going to do before I do it. So we don't have to spend time working out how to rearrange the song. They know exactly, Ryan's going to take a pause here, Ryan's going to hold this note out longer, the audience is going to be laughing here, so we've got to hold for them. It's the camaraderie of the business that I really love and I really cherish and I really miss because we're all kind of apart right now.
What is the band name?
No name. It's just a collective of musicians. Mark Selby is my most trusted and wonderful musical director. Julian Clark is a drummer and percussionist who is just wonderful. Jarrett Craig is an amazing bass player. Quentin Naughton, who I mentioned before, sometimes does keys too, and synthesizer work. So,
this is the whole impetus. Is that the word I want behind the Breakfast series? Is that I see someone on stage or I meet someone I've never met before, and I just need to know more about them. And so I've now had 3 hours of Ryan Hinds in my life and then 47 minutes of Brian Hinds on a podcast. But it's just like learning all these things about you and then being able to click through and go, oh, I'll look for that next cabaret thing, or I'm going to listen to the show you directed, or now I know these names of these other musicians in Toronto. It makes me so happy. It makes me so happy.
Ryan, thank you very much for joining us. Where can people find you? Do you have any socials to plug? Are there any socials you have for Sarah Frank or your personal ones?
I have all the socials on, and they're all just my own name. So Facebook.com, Ryan G. Hinds is my page. On Twitter, Ryan G. Hinds. On Instagram, Ryan G. Hinds. I'm not going to tell you my Grindr profile because that's another interview.
Totally different. Save that for Brian.
Yeah. But I also have my website, ryanghinds.ca, which has a lot of my biographical stuff and probably needs a pandemic update. I should do that probably.
Don't want to waste your pandemic. You got to get that kind of stuff done.
You know?
Thank you, everybody, for listening to the very first episode of The Breakfast Dish. The Breakfast Dish has been made possible by the Calgary Arts Development Authority, the Calgary Foundation, and the Rozsa Foundation. You can find us on Twitter at Breakfast Dish or on Facebook at The Breakfast Dish, plus a whole bunch of different podcast and listening platforms. You can find me on my socials at Griffin Cork.
Mrs. N. Diamond.
And I believe that's it. Thank you to Alexander Kalman for writing the intro and outro music, which you just heard and you're about to hear. Thank you to Morgan Erpter for all the lovely graphic design. And thank you to Ryan Hinds, a.k.a. Brian Hinds. I have been, what was it, Tiger Laser Blood?
Yeah. Tiger Blood Laser?
Yeah, something like that.
I've been Ice Cherry, and this has been The Breakfast Dish. Goodbye, Ryan.
Episode 1. What I should say is we were releasing this July 1st, but our release schedule will be every Monday. So the next episode you will see around 10 a.m. on July 6th. What a lovely goodbye that I ruined.
No, let's do it again. I've been...
Well, listen, we'll have a take 2. We'll have, this is the magic of theater. We can do it again.
I'll edit this out. Maybe I won't. I've been Tiger.
You can't even say it without laughing.
I've been Tiger Laser Blood.
I've been Ice Cherry.
I've been Brian Hinds.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
This has been The Breakfast Dish.